Welcome back. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to work with publishing your files to your student server space and how to kind of do all of that, how to find the right place to download your FileZilla clients, how to open things up, how to kind of know what your student server space is and how to save your files and everything, and also talking a little bit about what that looks like when you're using it specifically for turning in your homework. And just a reminder, I'm on a Mac. I've got an older video that I recorded, I think back in 2019 or something. And I'll see if I can link to that as well, so that way if you're wanting to see what this looks like on a PC computer, you can kind of see the differences between the menus and everything. I had thought about just using that video, but some of the information is just a little bit updated and different, so I figured it would be better for you to have more of a fresh look to it, but you could probably use either video and not have an issue. Alright, so first things first is you're going to want to download FileZilla if you haven't already figured out how to do that on your own. And there's a couple places that you can find this. So if you are going to the week 2 module, under the huge list of links that I have, if you go to the web publishing section, I've got a PowerPoint that we're going to go over in a future video. There's a couple links here. Those are going to all be talked about in that PowerPoint video. And then I've got this link that says download FileZilla. That's going to be the link that you want to go and download FileZilla. And I've got this PDF that has some directions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the PDF and I'm going to read the directions with you, so that way you kind of know how to go through it a little bit more quickly. And then I've also included the HTML validator here, just so that way you have that again where you can double check your files. And what I would really recommend that you do is either publish your first homework assignment to your server space, so you can kind of test things out from the standpoint of being able to know for sure that it works with how you're doing your homework. Or you could also just test publishing some of the demo files or something that you might have around, but it's going to help you the most if you have something that's similar to your homework. I wanted to also tell you, you can find some of this information also under the Getting Started section. So if you're looking for this down the line in the future, I have this publishing your website content. You can see that there's a spot here for the video. So once I've gotten done recording this, I'll actually publish that. So you should be able to see the video here in addition to week 2's module. I've got the PDF directions here. I've got the link to FileZilla. So there's going to be 2 different spots that you can go to be able to find that. All right, so I'm going to go back to week 2 and I'm going to right click on download FileZilla and do open a new tab, and then same thing with this PDF. So the reason I wanted to link to this is because if you go to download FileZilla, a lot of times when you're looking for it, these websites look a little bit outdated and it can look a little fishy, and it can make you wonder, am I actually downloading the right thing? Is this actually legitimate or not? So if you go to the link that I have, you should be fine. And you're going to want to click on the left option, the download FileZilla client. You do not want download FileZilla server. So you're going to click on download FileZilla client. And then it's going to give you an option, and it can tell that I am on a Mac. And so it's saying, do I want to download this? And you just click on the button. And then it does give me some of these other options, though, if I'm on Windows or if I'm on Linux. So you could go and you could download that, and then you'll just have to follow whatever the specific directions are for your own operating system. I'm assuming that most of you probably already know how to download and install software, but if you do encounter any issues, you can contact me and I can try to walk you through the process. Probably, well, either through Zoom or face to face, so that way I can see exactly what things look like. All right, so before we actually go into FileZilla, I want to go over again how to know what your student server space is. So you can type in https:// with an S at the end, so plural students, .jccc.edu / and this is why I wanted to make that previous video talking about the folder structure. So then you'll type in your username, which in my case is wbandle, and then in the wbandle space, I want to go into a folder, and this is where you'd have to know whatever your folder's name is. So let's say that I have this folder that's called organization. So I would say I want to go into the organization folder, and then from the organization folder, if I wanted to go to the index page, I would type in index.html, and I would be able to click on that and it would go to the file. I'm actually surprised this is here. I forgot that I actually had uploaded this in a previous semester. So I guess I have, you can tell it's a little bit different looking than the one that we did in the other video, but I do have this home, and then I've got to click to download the cat image, which I guess I did that instead of putting the image on here. But we can see that I have the index page. If I click on the hyperlink, it takes me from organization into pages and then hyperlink. So yours is going to be kind of similar for your homework, where you would type in assignment, and it depends on how you name your folder. So you want to make sure that you know exactly how your folder name's written. If you have a typo, you need to type that in. So let's say that you wrote assignment, but you forgot one of the S's. Then you would want to type it that exact same way. And I do know that I've got a file in here. So this is different than our homework. This is the homework that we used to have. So I've got wbandle, and then assignment 01 is how I'd like you to name your folder, and then there's index. And what you're going to do when you submit your homework is you're just going to write this all out, but with your username, have it match your folder and your file names. And then so long as your links all work, you're not going to need to submit every single URL. You're just going to need to have this index one, and I should be able to figure out the rest of your pages. A common misconception that students have is that I somehow have access to your files. I don't have access to anything. If you want to share your files with me, you have to tell me the exact location of your files. I can't go into your server space and look at how your file structure looks and tell you what your file names are or anything. So if you can't figure out your file names, I have to meet with you so I can look through your files in FileZilla with you and give you an idea of what's going on. I don't have access to anything behind the scenes to be able to see anything. So just a bit of a warning about that. Now back to what we had talked about in the syllabus file was if you do index.html, this is how you can check to see that your server space is working. So students.jccc.edu / your username / index.html, and that should get you this generic placeholder file that when they set up the student server space for you, they would have put this in there for you. So if you can't get this to show up, you want to contact me and I can work with you. That's why I chose this week to be a bit of a gap week, so that way you can work out any issues with that. You can work out any issues or questions that you might have on working with HTML or submitting your homework assignment, so you can kind of get used to the routine of everything. But you want to make sure that this is working. And just a warning now, because I might forget to mention this towards the end, but once the semester is over, if you aren't enrolled in another web class that uses the server space gets wiped at the end of every semester. So it is a good idea to upload all of your assignments. You're going to be asked to upload your assignments starting after the fourth assignment. The fourth assignment's where I'm going to have you start publishing your files, because it'll be the next one that you're working with HTML and CSS. But at the end of the semester, if there's anything that's on your server space that you want to make sure that you have access to, you want to make sure that you re-download it onto your computer, because otherwise you're going to lose access to that and they're going to just wipe everything that's there. So just a bit of word of caution on that. All right, so this should be, I've already got FileZilla downloaded and everything. The other thing you're going to have is this list of directions, and this is old. This was written in 2017. I don't know if they have a more current version. This is the only one that I have access to, but I think with this video and me going over how to do everything, I don't think you should need to worry about that at all. All right, so we're going to go find FileZilla. All right, and it is telling me that I need to install a newer version. I'm going to hold off on that. It's not going to be a big deal if I have an older version in this case. It shouldn't affect anything. A couple of reminders from things I had talked about in the syllabus video. If you are having an issue getting FileZilla to actually connect to the server, sometimes it's an issue with your firewall. It could be having some sort of VPN active. So you might, if you've got a VPN that you're using for another class or for personal use, you might have to turn that off and then log into FileZilla, upload your files, and then sign back off and then set that back up again. So just a bit of a heads up on all of that. All right, so when you are first starting off, you're going to need to go up to your file, or in my case, I've got the FileZilla and the file menu separate from each other. And this is why I'm going to link to my older video. So if you are on a Windows computer and things look different and you really want to make sure that everything is working fine, the old video version I have, actually, it also shows both processes on Windows and Mac. So there is a little bit of an option there. The biggest difference is in the older version, you used to have to go and set up your server space yourself, and now it's already set up for you. That's probably the biggest difference. And I don't know in that video if I go over how to go and download FileZilla. So anyways, when you're first starting, you're going to go to File and then Site Manager, and it's going to allow for you to create a new server space. Now, I've already got mine set up, so I'm actually going to delete this so it looks more like what you would see. And it's just saying that it's basically saving all of my sign-in settings and my preferences. So it's totally okay for me to go and do that. So I'm not actually deleting anything on the server space. I'm just deleting my settings for how I'm signing in. And actually you'll see I've got this here as well. So let me delete that. So now I have nothing in here. And so this should look more similar to yours, where you would go to new site, and this should look pretty similar on Windows as well, actually. And what I'm going to do is, let me see if I can get this file to be up at the same time. It might be a little bit hard. So this is going to be really tiny. If you need to, you could print yours out so you can see it. I'm going to skim read it. Basically, the menu is going to be different. Even if you're on Windows, it's going to look really different from what it says in here. But it's basically saying, download the software, make sure your student server space is set up, and then it's going to say go to File, Site Manager, which we've already done. And then it's going to say, you're going to create a new site, which is what we clicked on over here on the left. And then in this orange, it's telling you for the host, type in students.jccc.edu. So we're going to do that. And then the next step is going to be talking about the encryption. Require explicit FTP over TLS. Now, I've had a few students in taking online classes where they couldn't get this encryption to actually work on their computers. They've had to pick something else and it was fine. But if possible, you want to choose this option, require explicit FTP over TLS. So we want require explicit FTP over TLS. And then login type interactive. This is kind of up to you, really. I would say if you don't have real preferences, just pick based off of what it says here. But you'll notice that there's going to be other options where it's going to ask you for your password and everything. And then you technically could put your user here. If you're using one of the school computers, chances are this has already been set up for you. So if you were signing in, I would suggest go to the site manager, see if there's one that's already called jccc.edu. And in fact, I think part of the directions say to add this jccc student server. So then if you do eventually have a different server, you can make sure that you can keep them separate from each other. If you go onto one of the computers in the computer lab or one of the classrooms, you could check to see if someone else has already made one of these, and then you don't have to set it up again. But if you're working on a shared computer, I would recommend not putting the user in here, but if you're using your own, you technically could. It's not in the directions at all to do that. I'm going to leave mine where it's blank because there's another spot that you can do that. And so you can just click on connect. And then now it's actually asking me to enter my username for the server. And then that's where you could go and you could type in your username. And then now it's giving me this certificate message on if you can trust this or not. You can hit OK. And then it's going to ask you for your password. And this would be whatever your password currently is for your student account. And then you can hit OK. And this is what it's going to look like if it doesn't work. And that's because my username actually has to be written different than yours. So I typed, you can see there's this command to type in my user. It prompted me for my password. And then it has an error because my username is actually not being recognized. So if you see a red message, this is basically where you have your messages read to you, giving you feedback. That's what that would look like. Now there's another section, once you have that set up, because it's going to remember each time. If I go to File Site Manager, it's going to remember this. So once you set this up once, you can leave it. And then if you sign out, if you want to sign in more quickly, there's this Quick Connect option. So I can go here and you would type in students.jccc.edu. And then you would type in your username, your password. You do not have to put anything for port, and then you can just click on Quick Connect. And I got the same error message, but yours should work. Now, what I have to personally do, and you can kind of ignore this, for some reason for us professors, we have to type this out like we would our email. So I have to put at jccc.edu, and then now mine will connect. So when you see it like this, just ignore that. You're going to type in your username. You're not going to type in your email or anything. So now I can actually see that it's worked correctly because it's not giving me any error messages, and it says directory listing successful. And so now what we can see is on the left, we've got my local site, which is showing the users WBandle desktop, and then I've got my remote site. This is going to, so basically everything on the left is my files on my computer, and then everything that is on the right side is going to be everything that is on my student server space. And we can actually take a bit of a look at this, where if I click on public HTML, this is going to be all of the files that are published onto the server space. And I've got a bunch of different stuff that I put in here. I've got example assignment 1 file. I've got some demo files. I've got this organization 1. I've got some test files. I've even put some other files on here, like if let's say that there's some files that I want to be able to share with like audio examples for one of my classes, like I've got the sound effects folder and I've got some MP3s that I put in here just because I needed a place to host them. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be websites. Like you could just use this like a storage, like anything else really. I would recommend not putting a whole lot on here just because at the end of the semester, everything's going to get deleted off of it again anyways. But you could technically use that. So looking at the assignment folder, and you can see this is kind of a bit of a merger between the assignment and then one of those examples I did where I put the CSS and the images and everything together. The organization one, this one is showing kind of similar thing where I have the index page. Inside of the pages, I've got that hyperlink. If I go back to the organization folder, then I could go into the images. And then from there, I've got this folder. There was a folder called animals and then cat.png. So I've got this similar structure. So if I wanted to be able to submit this online, I would need to know that my file structure is organization, and then I've got a page called index. So you're going to want to know the same thing when you are turning in your homework. But anyway, so how you would actually move your files over is you would pick your files from over here, and sometimes the hardest thing is just finding your files. It looks like I've got my files right here where it's focusing on the desktop. Basically, you can look at the top section to look at the file of what you're currently in and the kind of the files that are surrounding in that same general structure. And then you can kind of look at the more specifics in here. And so let's see, I've got week 2 has that organization file. And so this is where, and we don't even need this anymore. This is where talking about your homework is going to be helpful. So let's say that this is your homework file. Right now it's called organization. What you would do to turn in your homework to Canvas is you would right click on this and you would compress it and you would turn it into a zip folder. And then we have this unzipped version. You would take this unzipped version that is over here and you're going to drag it into this public HTML folder. And you want to be really careful when you are moving it over so that you don't accidentally place it outside of the public HTML folder. If you do that, you can often break your public HTML folder where it won't actually show you your files when you try to go to it. So you want to make sure that you take your file, you click and drag, hold it until it's highlighting over top of the public HTML folder, and then you'll see that it's processing it. Now I've already got a file folder that's called organization, so it's going to ask me some questions. So when you turn in your homework, if you want to upload a newer version, like let's say you got done with the homework on a Wednesday and you were thinking about it a little bit more and you had a little extra time that you could go and you can make a change before Friday, you could go and you could re-upload your file and you could overwrite the files that are already there. So this is what that would look like. So you could just say overwrite, or you could choose overwrite if source is newer. So then it could kind of compare what's there or not, or you could skip certain files. So I'll just say overwrite, click on OK. And now if I were to go to this organization folder, now it's no longer going to show me that old version. It's going to show me this new version that we did together in that previous video that now has the picture that has the Bingley in it instead of that PNG file. All right, so it actually looks like maybe it merged them together because I didn't have a folder called animals. So if there was a conflict with the name of files, it actually replaced it, but if there wasn't, it kept it there, which is kind of interesting. So if that ends up creating a problem, what you can do is, so let's say that you don't want this, I can right click on it and I can download it. So if you do need to copy anything that you've already put on your server, you can do that. Or I could go ahead and I could delete it. I I could say yes, and you'll notice it's processing, and it'll tell me when it's done, so it's been successful. And then what I could do now is I could click on organization again, and then this time I could drag this new version over, and then that will go and it'll replace it. So I think one of the things that people find difficult is once the files are here, they don't know what the URL is. And so what I've found that some students do is, I think what they're doing is they're right clicking on it and they're saying create directory, and it tells them, oh, well, here's this information of where it's at. Or they'll click on it and they'll try to get the, here we go. This is what they click on. Copy URLs to clipboard. They'll do something like that. And here we go. Copy URLs to clipboard. And what it will do is it's not going to show you the actual file. So let's do cancel. What it does is, sorry, I'm trying to make this larger. It'll say FTP wbandle, and then it has this percentage 2540 jccc.edu at students.jccc.edu public HTML organization index.html. So some of this is correct, but a lot of it is not correct. And so you could do something like this where it's students.jccc.edu, but then this public HTML is not right. This part needs to get replaced. So if you were to submit your work by just copying it to the clipboard like that, that's not going to help you. You're going to have to know that you need to actually write this out with the host part first. So you put in this host students.jccc.edu, then you do / and you put in your username / whatever your folder name is, and then / whatever file it is that you want to reference. All right, so let's go back to Canvas, and we're going to look at what would this look like for turning in your homework. So let's say that we're going to assignment 1. I'm going to click on Start Assignment. And so you have an option of doing a file upload, a text entry, a website URL, Google Drive, Office 365. We're going to do upload a file. And we're going to browse. Let's see, I think I put it under week 2. So what you want to pick for uploading is the zipped folder. And then you can technically do a text entry or a website URL, but if you do this, it's going to remove and replace this file. You can't do both of these on the tab at the same time. You'd have to do multiple uploads, and you can do that. You can submit multiple times. So if you want to do a submission for a file upload and then you want to do a submission for a website URL, you can copy it here. But I think what works best is if you upload your file, and then as a comment, you can just write out students.jccc.edu, and then you can type in username, whatever the folder name would be. So in your case, like with the first one that you need to do would be assignment 04, and then / index.html. And that would be how you would turn it in. And I know this doesn't match, so I guess in this case it would be organization / index.html, and then I could click on submit assignment. And then that will, they added confetti on here, so that'll give us this information. Now, this actually brings up a good point too. So you can download your previous files. I would really recommend that when you're working on your homework that you create versions. Every single time you work on a new assignment, copy all of your files over to a new folder. There will sometimes be a case where in following the directions you get lost and you kind of go down a rabbit hole where you're too far gone from what you had and you get lost and you just want a nice restart. I've had students in the past where they ruined their files and they couldn't figure out what it looked like, and because they kept the same files every time, they couldn't fall back on a previous version. Now, when you're uploading your homework, there's always this record of those files. You can download those files. You don't need to ask me for a copy of those files. So if you're working on assignment 6 and you completely mess up your files, you could always go back to assignment 5 and you could download assignment 5's files and then have that. But I would recommend keeping your own files in separate folders anyway, so you don't have to do that, but you do have that as an option. And here you'll see, like, there's that comment. If I add comments on here, you'll be able to see that as well. And then you can go to submission details. This is going to be where you can find the rubric. And unfortunately, I feel like otherwise the rubric is pretty hard to find anyways. So I can go here and it'll have this option to resubmit the assignment, which you could do that if you wanted. There's a list of the files that you have uploaded. There's the comment history over here, so you could add a comment. Maybe I have some feedback where I said, you forgot to upload your URL, could you please add that? And then you could just go in here and you could just type out the address, and then you could hit save, and that would be fine. So there's this option here, show rubric, and I really hate how this looks. Hopefully it looks better in the actual student version versus what sort of preview it gives me. But I'm going to fill this out with comments. So if you forgot to put your comment on one of your pages, I'm going to say missing comment. Usually it's on your CSS. Missing comment on your CSS. And then I might give you 1 out of 2 points. Working hyperlinks. Maybe it's that your email link isn't working. I'll give you directions and say, your email link needs to be written like this. And then I'll maybe say 1.5 out of 2 points because you missed the email link. Spelling and grammar. Sometimes I grade I'm pretty flexible on spelling and grammar. If it's 1 or 2 typos out of a whole website, I don't think that's enough to really count off like a whole half point or a whole point. So usually if it's just like 1 or 2, I'll say, you've got a few typos, double check your work, and I might still give you like 2 out of 2. Code validation, usually I'll divide this up by page. So if you've got 2 pages and one of your pages is giving validation errors, this is where I'll try to give you feedback and tell you what's going on with it. So if it's you forgot the end body tag, I'll give a whole list of things that aren't working and say, the reason why it's giving you a code validation error on the index page is you need your end body tag. And there are some times where there's just so much stuff here that I might even say, here's the gist of what's wrong, but you should probably meet with me and I can go over it in more detail. So that way I can be more specific. Indentation, I'll just kind of count points on that. And then content, it'll be whatever content is new to that assignment, because there's going to be some issues that might be built up from a previous assignment. So I'll try to specifically focus on the new things. But you do want to make sure that you correct things based off of this feedback before you go on to the next one. And that's why I think it's really important for you to know where this rubric is. I've had students where they made the same errors for all of the assignments all semester, and I think it's because they weren't reading the rubric. And I feel like it's a shame when it's something that I think is really simple that I know that you could fix pretty easy, especially if it's, let's say that it's something like adding a comment where you just forgot about it, and then because you're still working on the same files each time, you just keep forgetting that you need to add a comment at the top because you just assume that what you've already created is fine. I hate to see someone miss 2 points on every single assignment throughout the whole semester. So make sure that you come here and you take a look at this. Now, if you go to the grades section, you can kind of see the same thing. I might have to go in and actually put some stuff into the rubric for it to really show up properly, but you should be able to see the comment information here. If you click on, I guess it's not going to show up here. Let me see where else it might be. All right, so I went and graded that assignment 1. All right, so this is what it looks like once it's been graded, where I've got the message again, submitted, submission details, download, and then now there's the grade information, and then here we have view rubric evaluation, and this is looking at it on the assignment section. I can click on that, and then it's showing me the same view that we had before with the show rubric and everything. And let me check the grades section, because I think now there's an icon here where there's the score, there's the section you can go and look at the comments, but now there's this little rubric where if I click on this might be the easiest way to actually view it and be able to see any comments written out, versus I think when you go to the assignment it looks a little bit more cramped. So you should be able to see your feedback here under the grade section, and then if you wanted to, you could go to the assignments and you could see it there, and that's also where you could download it. But at least when I look at it in this view, it very awkwardly pops up, and it kind of is off to the right where it doesn't take up a lot of space. All right, so that's everything for submitting your file. Once you've got everything on here, if you are on a computer that you are sharing with other people, especially if you're using a computer at the school, or let's say it's the public library or something, you want to make sure that you disconnect from the server. If you're using a personal laptop and you don't really think that it's going to be an issue to stay signed in, it's kind of up to you. I think it's a good idea to just get used to signing off, but you'll go to the server menu item, and this will be the same on Windows too, is you go to server and then you click on disconnect, and it'll go ahead and it'll disconnect you from the server. And then you can go ahead and close out of it, and you're all set. So if for any reason you cannot get FileZilla to work, and what I would like for you to do, you don't have to actually do this as homework, but in class, when I have a face-to-face class, I tell people, you know, I'm going to let you out, maybe it's like, I'm going to let you out 20 minutes early, but before you leave, you have to prove to me that you've uploaded something to your file server space. So if you were face-to-face, that would be it would be my requirement of what you have to do. I'm not going to force you to send me an email or anything with proof that you have uploaded your file, but I think that would be a good idea though, if you could make sure that you have that file, because it'll give you plenty of time to make sure that you know how to do that before you do need to submit assignment 4 with FileZilla. And then if you do have any issues, please send me an email and we can set up a time to meet, whether face-to-face or over Zoom, and I'll try to be as flexible as possible with my availability, because I know that the reason why you're probably taking this online is so you have that flexibility of being able to do your class when the time suits you. But I really want to make sure that you can upload your files. What I usually do for points is, once it gets to assignment 4, if you are not publishing your files to the student server space and adding a link to your submission, I will count 2 points off from the content section. So that would be 2 points on every single assignment for the rest of the semester, if for some reason you just skip that step. It's going to be really important. And it's actually really important that I'm pretty forgiving with it. I could definitely count off more points. There are other professors that teach in this content area that if you don't put your files on FileZilla, they give you a 0 on the assignment, and they just won't accept it unless it's been published. And so I would definitely recommend that you figure out how to do it, especially before you move on to working with JavaScript, because they're going to be a lot harsher about that and not necessarily accepting work if it's not published correctly. All right, so leave me an email if you are having any issues, or if you just want to check in and say how things are going. And then you can also add something to the discussion if you have any sort of questions or comments that you think might be beneficial to everyone else as well.